It's your boy Jacko Baby. And we back here on this frequency and be anywhere in the world right now. Glad you're here with me. And so what we talking about? We talking about Gene Simmons, the leader from Kiss and the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and how he doesn't think rap should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And he has a couple of legit reasons for his opinion. So let's get into that. Let you hear what he got to say, and then I'll come back and holler at you.
The fact that, for instance, Iron Maiden is not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame when they can sell out stadiums, and Grandmaster Flash is.
Right.
Ice Cube and I had a back and forth, and he's a bright guy, and I respect what he's done. It's not my music. I don't come from the ghetto. It doesn't speak my language. And I said in print many times, hip hop does not belong in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, nor does opera, symphony orchestras. How come the New York Philharmonic doesn't get the Rock and Roll? Because it's called the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. But he shot back and said, no, it's the spirit of rock. Okay, fine. So Ice Cube and Grandmaster Flash and all these guys are in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I just want to know when Led Zeppelin's going to be in the Hip Hop Hall of Fame. Oh, you can't do that. Oh, really? No. Music has labels because it describes an approach. By and large, rap, hip hop, it is a spoken word art. And you put, beats in back of it, and somebody comes up with a musical phrase, but it's verbal. There are some melodies, but by and large, it's a verbal thing. It's rhyming and all that.
But the fact of the matter is that every form of music that has lyrics in it is a spoken word. Because in every form of music that has vocal in it, whether it's singing, whether it's hip hop, whether it's rock and roll, whether it's R&B, country, even jazz, the ones that are instrumental, what they do is they speak to a rhythm, or their words become, they're rhyming. Listen to any song and you'll hear that the word at the end of the bar usually rhymes with the word at the end of the previous bar or the next bar. That's spoken word. You're talking about your feelings. You're talking about current events. You're talking about something, but you're just doing it in a singing form. So when he said hip hop is more spoken word, I get it. I agree. But so is every other form of vocalized music. And when he compared person he said could fill stadiums and compared him to Grandmaster Flash, I mean, what's your criteria? I mean, just because a person can fill a stadium, is that the only criteria that makes that person deserving of being in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? I mean, did he change the music genre? Did he change that whole field of rock and roll? They, or the group, whoever you were talking about, did he change how people looked at that genre? Because I can tell you Grandmaster Flash did. He changed how people looked at hip hop. He was an icon, and then he went on to help other people. So when you say he doesn't deserve to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, if he doesn't, I don't have a strong case for anyone else, if we're being honest. Now, you said you spoke to Ice Cube, and he said, and you were correct when you talked about different genres. You said you don't believe opera deserves to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. You don't think a lot of different forms of music should be in a hip hop hall in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Then you said, should Aerosmith be in the hip hop Hall of Fame? Well, couple of things. There is no hip hop Hall of Fame. And that has a lot to do with how people view this music coming from, like you said, a urban Black community. And a lot of people are getting offended because you said you don't relate because you don't come from the ghetto. I think people are just being overly sensitive about that because if 50 Cent or someone would have said in an interview, yeah, hey, I do this music, it came straight from the hood, straight from where I came up at. People wouldn't even bat an eye. They would sympathize and empathize with him saying that. And that would have made what he said more real, more felt, right? Because he would have used the word hood. I came from the hood, because we don't say ghetto no more as a positive. And I wouldn't expect you to know that. You know what I mean? Because you wasn't trying to down someone by saying, it wasn't like you were saying, you guys came from the ghetto, it's trash. Before you said that statement, you had already paid homage to the people before you. Like you even knowing Grandmaster Flash and stuff like that, I have to give you a certain amount of respect because that shows within itself that you have some history. You're not just running off at the mouth. You're talking with some history behind you and you're making a decision based on the information that you have and you're informed. So you could have said hood, but people would have been saying, and you see how he was being sarcastic saying hood, it came from the hood. So you couldn't get away from that one. People just overly sensitive. But I understand exactly what you're saying. And it did come from the ghetto. That's what made it more powerful. And rock and roll came from that same place. When you're thinking and talking about Chuck Berry, when you're talking about Little Richard, like they started rock and roll and it came from that same place. They weren't rich. They was touring the Chitlin Circuit. That's why it's called the Chitlin Circuit, because it comes from the hood, the ghettos, the Black ghettos, if I'm being more specific. And the most famous rock and roll person of all time to you guys and globally is fuck wrong with this camera. Hey, would you stop? Fuck, man. Can't hire that right help nowadays, man. And the camera just turning all over the place. But Elvis Presley, he hung around with these people. He hung around with these Black people and absorbed their music and their soul and where it came from, and he incorporated it in his own music to make it more soulful, to make it more felt. The dancing, singing, the lyrics, all of it. He says this. And again, another person I think paid homage, you know, um, and then it got whitewashed and turned into something different. And I'm not saying that's bad, but I'm just saying it turned into something different, you know. Then it was borrowed to others, and then they took it over because, it was more they were being accepted for doing the same music, like you said, that Black folks was doing, and it wasn't being accepted. Only on that circuit, the chilling circuit, right? But you all can do it globally, and people will accept it. So, so yeah, there's that. But because it was taken out of the hands of Black folk, pretty much, that's where rap took its place. See what I'm saying? Rap came from the same place rock and roll came from, the urban ghetto, the hood. That's where rock and roll came from. Then rap came from there because we didn't have the rock and roll anymore. I mean, we could still do it, but we wouldn't get the eyes like the Elvis Presley, the Kisses, and Van Halen, Aerosmith, and all these other people. Aerosmith, they were done. But what revitalized them and saved them? Hip hop. So you say Aerosmith should be in a hip hop hall of fame. For what? Hip hop brought him back, brought them back. They didn't bring hip hop back. Hip hop brought them back. They didn't want to do it at first. Well, Run DMC them didn't either, but they were done with. Nobody cared about them anymore. Hip hop brought them back. That's the power of hip hop. So they don't have a strong case for being in any hip hop hall of fame because they did a song with the hip hop artist. They didn't bring hip hop back, or they just did a song with a hip hop artist. Hip hop brought them back when they were declining. So, and there is, so I was going to get to the point, there is no hip hop hall of fame. And that's for the same reason that Black folks had to turn to hip hop. Because if there were a hip hop hall of fame, people would continuously be trying to take away the funding for it. People would be continuously trying to make laws or rules of why it shouldn't be separated. Perfect example, the African American History Museum. Now, there are all kind of museums. There's the Holocaust Museum. There are all kind of museums. The only one that's being talked about being defunded and changed and being divisive is the African American History Museum. Nobody's talking about changing the Holocaust Museum at all. You would be ran out of town to even bring that thought up. But when it comes to the African American History Museum, nobody bats an eye when they're talking about defunding it, changing everything. How are white people going to come in and make the African American History Museum better? I mean, I think Black folks went to the museum and they were happy with it, are happy with it. How are white folks going to go in and change it and make it better, saying it's too much about slavery and about making white people feel bad? And nobody's trying to make anybody feel bad. If the truth makes someone feel bad, then maybe they should feel bad. The truth is the truth. Nobody's telling the truth so it can hurt someone else. They're telling the truth so you can have the history so you won't fall into those same mistakes or same habits, right? So Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is going to be there for eternity. Nobody's going to ever talk about tearing that down, or nobody's ever going to come along and say, you know what, we had enough of this Rock and Roll Hall of Fame stuff. We can go ahead and just tear that down. No, that's never going to happen. But if there was a hip hop Hall of Fame, that would definitely happen. It would probably happen during this term. It would be gone right now. But you don't have hip hop if you don't have rock and roll. Because if rock and roll was accepted by the people who created it, it would be dominated by Black folks. Right? And I'm really not trying to make this a racial thing. I'm just trying to really just stick with the facts of the matter, the facts of the issue. I'm not trying to make it racial. So again, it's just the facts. So if you're offended by the facts, like I just said, it's the facts, right? Black folks would have probably been doing rock and roll and hip hop wouldn't have come out. But that was commandeered from them. They weren't getting the same money. They weren't getting the same looks. They wasn't getting the same publicity. They weren't getting the same gigs. They wasn't touring the same as the same people who borrowed their music. Black folks are resilient. They shared the music. And then it was pretty much commandeered. And same with country. And then when Black folks tried to continue being into it, I was going to say get back into it, but how can you get back into something that you created? So when they tried to continue to do it, because they haven't been seen on a massive scale for so long, they're looked at crazy when black folks try to Hootie and the Blowfish. Like when black folks try to do rock and roll now, people act like, why are you trying to get into our music? It's crazy. When black folks do country music, Beyonce, right? Other folks look at them like, why are you trying to do our music? It's incredible. So they created hip hop. Now, do you see what's happening? You got Fat Joe and other people trying to say, hey, we were right there alongside black folks when they created hip hop. We created it with them. What? Okay. We know black folks have been oppressed and suppressed, right? Had to do the chitlin circuit. That's why they didn't get huge around the world, right? We know this has happened. Everybody can vouch for that. Who's holding Hispanics back, Puerto Ricans? Who's holding them back from becoming huge rappers since they started it with us, right? Who's holding them? Where are their superstars in rap? You got a couple, right? But if they started it with us, wouldn't it be like more than like one or two? Black folks have done the same thing they've always done. Once they start doing something and it's fun and it's not about the money really, because nobody was making money. It's about the artistic freedom and the freedom of expression, which is the same thing rock and roll started about. The rebellion, the freedom. I'm going to sing what I want to sing. I'm going to say what I got to say. And I'm going to say it loud, right? So that's where rap came from. Hip hop, breakdancing, and all that. This is me expressing myself. Now you got Fat Joe and other people talking about we started it right alongside. I mean, when I was breakdancing, if I'm keeping it 100, I ain't see no people who weren't black in Chicago. Like y'all might have had a couple in New York, like on Beat Street. But in Chicago, we were breakdancing too. And there are Puerto Ricans in Chicago. I didn't see them breakdancing when I was breakdancing. Like when I started. A little later, yeah. I seen they would you can see them, they doing a thing. And it's less black folks doing it. Notice that? And so now it looked like Asians and Mexican, Puerto Ricans, it seems like they're all doing the breakdancing now, and there are fewer black folks doing it. So in 20 years, it's gonna be like they invented it. They created it. Now, so I mean, but this is the way it goes. Like, I feel like black folks always, when they see that people are trying to commandeer their art, they just go and create another form of art, And instead of people giving them their flowers for creating the art, they pretend that they created it. So I give Gene Simmons his flowers on this one because in this interview, he said who created rock and roll and where it came from. He said it. And he talked about the people at the start of hip hop. The thing I disagree with him on is that, and he said it started in the ghetto. It did start in the ghetto. The thing I disagree with him on is Aerosmith, if there was a hip hop Hall of Fame, Aerosmith going in there because hip hop can be rock and roll. Rock and roll can't be hip hop for some of the same reasons you spoke about. Hip hop is more spoken word. It works just as effectively with or without the beat. As you can see, battle rap is huge. Hip hop is just as effective with or without the beat. And you kind of referred to it, but from your position, it was like it's melodic, is like a spoken word. Rock and roll is more the beat, the music, everybody's playing an instrument. Let me touch on that. The reason people who do hip hop don't aren't touching the instrument is because when the people who started hip hop, they couldn't afford instruments. That's where see, they couldn't afford drums, they had to use their bodies, tables, anything. So hip hop, they created the beats. Like all that was created because they couldn't afford the instruments to do that with. And in everybody's house, the adults could afford a record player, and their kids start fucking up all their records. I'm sorry, their kids start messing up all their records. Scratching their records. And so again, making the needle make another beat, and they took break beats, parts of other full records because they couldn't afford the drum machines and all that, and they used the part of the beat that they didn't rap on, or I mean that they didn't sing on, like the singers, James Brown, all this. And then that breakdown beat, the break, that's why they call break beats, because they used the break in the beats to make their own beat, because there was no vocals on there. And the DJ was the person in front doing his thing. Like Dr. Dre, he was the DJ when he was with the Turn Out the Lights and right, the Rural Wrecking Crew. He was the DJ. And if you see Ice-T on Breaking, and he wasn't the DJ, but the rapper was only the hype man for the DJ. The DJ doing his thing, the rapper, hey, throw your hands in the air. Yeah, wave your hands like you just don't care. Yeah, y'all like that? Yeah, he cutting that up, ain't he? So see what I'm saying? Like that. And so after a while, it was like, hold up, man, let me say a little something while I got the microphone, right? Grandmaster Flash and all them, like Grandmaster Cass. But like they start rapping, and then all of a sudden they became the focal point. Think about it. All the DJs' names back then came before whoever was MCing. Like Eric B and Rakim. For the longest time, I thought Eric B was the rapper. His name first, it's like Eric B. Oh yeah, and Rakim, that other guy. Like on Seinfeld. Yeah. Is Pavarotti so and so and so and so, and the other guy. Yeah, the other guy. So Eric B. Rakim was the other guy, but then I learned that Rakim was the rapper. I was like, oh, man, why his name went first? All this other dude do is step behind the record, like LL Cool J, Cut Creator was his DJ. Rock the beat with your hands. You know what I mean? So to say that, I say hip hop cannot get its own Hall of Fame and it be anything lasting, because as long as we are not the majority considered in America, United States, the majority, people will always try to erase our history. I don't, why? Because I don't think like that. I don't understand how other people think that. And it's not the majority of white folks, but it is the ones who have the power to do it. See, it's interesting. I've noticed this during this whole Trump thing. It's the ones who have the power who are the racists. Hey, it's the ones who have the power who are the racists. See what I'm saying? Like, this is that shit I'm talking about right here. Like, all of a sudden, when I'm starting to talk about people in power, the camera wants to turn away and all this dumb shit. Conspiracy, but this shit's just happening right now. It wasn't doing all they did it one other time. Anyway, it's the ones who have the power there's a large group of racists within that bunch. And it's the really, really ignorant ones. Like trailer trash. Don't have money, so they just hate people. And they feel like They feel like because they don't have any money, they're still better than black people. You know what I mean? Because that's all they got to hold on to. It's like when during slavery, it used to be the slave masters, and then there were the black and white folks. But then the black and white folks, they were getting along really well. The slave masters, they got frightened of that because they knew that eventually they would get together and overrun the house. Why wouldn't they? They were starting to create a kinship. Then the slave owners realized that because the white folks were slaves too, the ones who weren't rich. Well, they were endangered servants. They weren't slaves, they were endangered servants. So the masters made them the slave hands, which meant that they were above the slaves. So that created that separation. You're not us, but at least you're above the slaves now and you can make them work. That created the separation right there. And that's why people who are racist, that's why they think they don't even know it came from this, but that's why they think they're better than black folks because they don't know the part of their history where they were the black folks as well. They were indentured servants, but the slave owners made them the slave hand so that they can feel better than the people who they used to work right alongside. And so that's what's happening, you know. You have the people in power who are racist, and then you have the middle class. That's where everybody's not everybody, but see that shit? That's where everybody's getting along at in the middle class. Cause they work together, they make friendships, they marry, have kids, they're best friends and family. So that's where they're interwoven together right there in that middle class. But then in that lower class, they're in their silos. So they don't have a lot of interaction with black folks or other people. And that's where they just stew in the hate. And, it's unfortunate. But yeah, I wanted to talk about this Gene Simmons and his comments about why he didn't think hip hop belongs in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. If it weren't in the rock, Gene Simmons, if it weren't for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame adopting hip hop into it, it would cease to exist once it's done. So if you can look at things that way, maybe it'll give you a more clear understanding of why it might not be such a bad idea. If we're in there alongside you guys and the originators of rock and roll, they would make it as if it didn't exist. And I think you've shown enough respect for the history of it to not want it to ever seem like there was never a place in history for it. Even though you don't get it, you didn't grow up in that way. Those are your reasons for not understanding. It's fine. I have nothing to say about that. Like the kind of rock and roll you do, I'm not listening to that. Biting heads off snakes like or rats like Ozzy Osbourne. I'm not doing that. But I think it's important that there's a space to see that music existed in history. And the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is going to always be respected by people in power, whether they liked it or not. They at least respect it enough to not want to destroy it or the memory of it. The same can't be said for hip hop. So that's why I think it being in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame alongside rock and rollers I think is great. It goes hand in hand. The same people created both. Yeah. Now you got people, white folks in hip hop that are elite. And this is like some black people don't want to accept that Eminem is one of the top 3, the top 5, one of the top 5 best lyricists of all time up until this date. And when I say one of 5, because some people are like, "Oh, you mean one of 5? He's one of 3." There are 5 people that anybody could probably name, and I don't know where I would place those. So, one of 5 is a safe space. I'm not saying he's number 5. He could be number 1. He's not my number 1. My number 1 best lyricist of all time is Lupe Fiasco. And if you only know his commercial success, then you don't know what I'm talking about. But if you do your research, you'll figure it out. I'll do a video about the best hip hop, all hip hop. Speaking of hip hop, I'm gonna do a video about all hip hop, all I was gonna say genres, but all parts, because hip hop is multifaceted. All facets of hip hop, I'll say. I can make an argument that in all facets of hip hop, Chicago reigns number 1. New Yorkers getting pissed right now. I'm telling you, I can make an argument for that. And I'll do a video on it, but I'll tell you right now. I'll go more in detail in the video, right? But I'll tell you this right now. Fast rap, right? Rapping fast. You got a lot of fast rappers. Tech Nine is one of my favorites. Bone is one of my favorites. All of them. Snicken is one of my favorites. I'm stickity bum, stickity bum. Who's that? I'm stickity bum, stickity bum. They're not coming to mind right now, but they weren't like really fast, but Foo Snickers was fast. But the best one to me, to a lot of people, is Twister. That's the fast flow. Biggest hip hop artist ever. Canada will say Drake. New York will say, I don't know. New York will say somebody because Jay-Z. New York will say Jay-Z because they're going to say Jay-Z. I submit that the most famous hip hop artist ever is Kanye West. Okay? Best producer of all time. Again, I would submit the best producer is Kanye West. And Just Blaze is up there. Okay? It's the best producer. The best backpack rap of all time. I submit that Common is the best backpack type rap of all time. One of my favorites is Kweli from, why am I forgetting people? I can't remember their name. Talib Kweli. He's one of my favorites from New York. But I don't think he's better than Common. He's right there though. And like Kanye was also a part of that, but I digress. I won't say that. Best woman rapper of all time. Some people will say Nicki Minaj. Some people will say Cardi B. I submit that it was the Brat. First woman to ever go platinum is the Brat. Just saying. Best group of all time. I would submit that Do or Die is one of, if not the best group of all time. See, so when people talk about this stuff regarding hip hop and all this stuff, all they do is mention like New York, it started in New York, blah, blah, blah. Then they'll say, then the West Coast took it over with NWA and blah, 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 right? Then they'll say, the South said they had something to say, Outkast took it over. So they always say the East Coast, it started, the West Coast, they took it, and then the South, they took it. Nobody ever mentions Chicago. It's cool. It's cool. But now that I mentioned Chicago, and I said in every facet of rap, I have an argument for the top person in their craft at that thing, they came from Chicago. And I just submitted it. Everybody's not gonna agree that they're number one. I just feel that way. but you can't say they're not in the top 5. Nobody just talks about it. But so I just had to, yeah, I had to throw that in there and, let people know where I was coming from. I'm aware, man. I'm aware of what's going down. So, with that being said, in a world that evolves in all ways, let your foundation be eternal love always. Thanks for listening. I'll catch you on the next frequency. Until then, it's Eli. Frequently. You looking good, ma. How you doing?
I'm fine.
That's good. My name's CDN. What's your name?
My name's Hadilla.
It's a beautiful name, but I just call you Hot.
I guess you can.
So, what would it take for a man like me to get with a woman as fine as you?
You really want to know what it takes to get with a girl like me?
For sure. Your gravity, bringing them strings. Yeah, let's add some emotion to this scene.